And before we begin anything, I want us all personally to find our own way, to ask permission for our group to be here, for our energy to be in unity with this space that is welcoming us so openly. So the permission is from the keepers of the land, from the ancestors of the land, from the energies that are here. And we honor them as they honor us. As in their multitudes, they're surrounding us. They're embracing us in energy and in the elements of the nature around us, in the monuments, in the rocks, in the plants, in the stones, in the wind, and in the connection between us, between their breath and our breath, we find unity, we find honoring, we feel the compassion, we feel the benevolence, and we feel the magnificence of this space. We feel the magnificence that we are, that is reflected within us. Although this place is long ago, eons ago, have been an ocean, it is truly an ocean of energies, of multidimensional energies that we are literally bathing in when we're here. Take a deep breath and allow that breath to connect you deeper and deeper to this space, feeling the earth, feeling the elements of nature, and through your heart, slowly opening more. Your heart, your breathing is what connects this entire journey and all of us together with this land. This is indeed a land of healing, a land of compassion that can speak to us and every day in many ways, to each of us individually, in different ways. The more we are open to it, the more we listen, the more we are attentive, the more we will see, feel, hear, sense, smell the gifts it has for us. Take another deep breath. And feel also the strong build-up of coherence between us as we first meet, between each one of us. And as we connect more with the land, we're welcoming the Kryon entourage that is pouring into this space, and for the first message from Kryon.
So deep gratitude to Elan for inviting us to connect with the ancestors, because I would like to honor the traditional ancestors on this land, because they are still here. I would like to honor the ancestors of the ancestors, for they were the Pleadians, and they too are still here. And both the ancestors, ancient and Pleiadian, had direct communication with Gaia. And we have come here on this journey together. We are traveling and creating our own songline, a songline of experiences that we will carry with us for the rest of our life. And so we want to acknowledge that we are also our own ancestors, returning to this place in celebration, The grids here of Gaia are pure. There is pure Gaia energy flowing. And so again, we give thanks and gratitude.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. There have been those who would ask in channel, Kryon, do you know where we are, what we're doing? It's a funny question. Dear ones, I am so aware of the hearts here. I'm aware of what you think. I'm aware of those challenges that you might bring to this very place. Because I am connected to the great central sun, the source of all, in the same way that the indigenous of this area were connected. In the same way that they could look upon the land and know what was coming. In so many signals given to them. And that is because there is a oneness here, practiced for centuries, that I would like to discuss with you in these brief moments. Monument Valley is where we are, as the sun goes down, as the temperatures go with it. This is the first of several channels in this place. We've been here before. And we return for the same reasons that there was such a blessing before, in so many ways. There aren't that many of you, not really. And we're going to be together for some days. And what I want to ask of you is this. Do you feel that land that is pristine like this might have something for you besides that which you see with your eyes? And if you do, how does that work? Getting esoteric with each of you, the question is real. Does the land speak to you? Now, if you ask those whose ancestors preceded them in the very place you're standing and sitting, they would smile. Because they would stand in their quietness and the land would speak to them. Because the land represents their ancestors. In the wind, in the dirt, in the directions of the compass. With the monuments, the rocks, the dirt, the animals. The oneness with these things are part of the ancestry that they would smile at and say, you have no idea where you are. This continues to this day. For this land has remained pristine. Very, very few negative things have taken place in these acres that you look, in the places that you're going to visit, in the stillness that you will feel at your cellular level. And in that, we're going to ask you, as you begin this journey, does the land have anything to tell you? We have given many channels in many directions and many places. It told you that the human being has free choice. And you can stand up and you can say, there is nothing here for me, or I'm really not interested. And the land can yell at you and you'll hear nothing. And the reason is because you are honored with your choice to receive or not to receive. Full honor, no judgment. And it goes the other way. What I want to tell you is this. If the land had anything to say to you at this moment, at this instant, as you sit here with the temperature dropping, it would say, welcome. And it would say, we've expected you and we have messages for you. And for a few of you, we've got epiphanies. And for the rest even, there's healings. Because when you become one with the land, you become one with history and the ancestors and all that has gone before. And you open yourselves up to wisdom. And when wisdom pours into a human being, no matter how old or young you are, you leave differently. You own part of the valley because it goes with you and you remember it, because that's where you learned what you learned. You're in the right place, dear ones, at the right time. And right now the valley is saying, be prepared for great things. If you want to say there's compassion for your soul, it's true. Because the earth in general, the sentient being that is the earth, and all the grids upon it are here for you. There is love here and compassion here for the souls, no matter where you're from. No matter how pure your blood is or not, the ancestors are here. Non-judgment. To say, let this begin in a way that is better than you thought, more sacred than you thought. And let it end in epiphanies you didn't expect. Some of you will find yourself openly weeping for no reason at all, except for the beauty of the land and what you feel in your heart as it greets you as you walk upon it. That's where you are. And there are few places on this earth where you can get that. They're not all the same, dear ones. The grids align here. The beauty aligns here. The ancestors align here. It is so ready for you to march, literally, into the dirt and check it out. And that's what we're doing for the next few days. You couldn't be in a better place in your life than right here, right now, with those that you're with. Couldn't be better. Invitation is this: for a few days, drop the rest of the world. Don't let the things you came with stay with you that irritate you. Don't worry about the things at home. Just for a few days. And in that, it's an invitation for the oneness of all that's here, including the majesty of the ancestral energy, to fill you and start talking. Talking in ways that you'll feel, not hear. That you'll understand through intuition. Listen to your guide. For she has a great deal to say through her ancestors and her voice. We'll be back. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. The indigenous all over the earth got it. They understood that the souls of the departed come back and give them wisdom. That they live in the land, in the blood. And that is the way that they transfer the information, the wisdom, so that one generation can exist and be wiser than the one before. And so I will always ask permission of the ancestors in a land like this to give a message about them. As I speak now, dear ones, the rocks are listening. The land is alive. 30 years ago, I started to tell you these things. I told you that someday that scientists will redefine life when they realize that there's life in the rock, in the dirt, because of what they discover that is multidimensional. And they'll realize an intelligence, a wisdom, has always been there. Modern culture and humanity, in these days, with all of the spirituality, have left out the complement. the content of Gaia. But this, dear ones, is changing along with some other things. The Maya predicted in 2012 that if you made it, dear ones, past that point, civilization would begin to shift. And one of the shifting points would be the rediscovery of things past. A great aha as consciousness started to rise, that you would turn slowly to the ones who had been here the longest. Because a higher consciousness must always include the earth. And right now, it doesn't. Marietta sits next to me, and I wish to honor her. And I wish to tell her something. The group that is assembled in this valley, in the sun here, in these beautiful places, in this stillness, you think it would be a spiritual group? It isn't. It's an aware group. And I want to say to Marietta that this group is aware of the differences in the cultures. I would like to say to Marietta, this group is aware of what you carry in your blood. That it is the wisdom of the ancestors and the promise of things to come, which you will do. This group is aware that what you carry and what your ancestors carry are going to affect the future. And that there will come a time when many will come to you and your people and sit at your feet and listen to the stories, because every story is a story of the right way to live. Every story has metaphors of the animals and the plants and the earth, and they mean things that are profoundly important. Things that have carried a culture through thousands of years, where modern culture continues to war and doesn't last hardly at all. A remembrance of what this earth means. Your culture, Marietta, carries some wonderful stories, even those you have given us so far, that carry symbols that you don't even know about to us. Symbols that other indigenous have developed that you are also talking about. I'll give you one. Ancient Tibetans developed a system of numbers where the numbers would mean certain things and certain energies, much like the indigenous of this land assigned energies to animals and the various things of the planet. And the Tibetans did it with numbers. And one of the numbers that was profound was 4. Now, Marietta, you've given us so many examples of the 4 thises and the 4 that's, and the 4 decisions and the 4 worlds. And you might sign them to the directions of the planet, but you'd be interested to know that Tibetans assigned them to Gaia, to Mother Earth, to all that is inside the dirt. There is a similarity all over the world to what the indigenous know, what they teach, in their own ways, in their own symbols, in their own language, but dear ones, it always come back to the earth. Something else is happening. Marietta, I want to tell you, I see above you a woman, an elder, and you know who she is. And you have taken her mantle, dear one. I see sitting on her another woman, and on her another woman. And I see in this lineage of yours shamanic qualities that go back thousands of years, and not one of them is male. In your culture, in your stories, did you notice that some of the stories will be those of the mistrust of men? This in itself is the story I want to tell you, that women are the ones that have always been the ones to carry shamanic energy. And perhaps that is not what you have seen in these lands and these years and in your lineage, but it is returning. And you should know this, that this is the way of it and has been. It started with women. You say the medicine man, it was the medicine woman. Because they carried the secrets and they carried the wisdom. What better than to have a woman who gives birth and understands intuition and joy and teaching and patience to teach? It makes total sense. You call yourself a shaman in training. I'll tell you, every shaman at the last breath they take are still in training. Because they still learn from the planet and from their ancestors and from their lineage. And this is our honoring to you today, to say we're different cultures, different times, but we see you and we know you. Is it possible to sing to the earth and have it react? Let me give you this. It's possible to sing to the earth and have it sing back. And that is the message that the ancients in this valley want you to know. Let it start with the planet and go from there. Let the wisdom that you would have in your life in the right way to live and knowing what to do, how to treat one another, start with the earth. And we've said it before, the tree hugger knows. The one who is in anxiety and goes into the field to feel better knows that the earth has a personality and a love for you and will sing back to you. I hope you have heard this message and felt the intensity of the compassion of when we say to you, everything you need to know is right at your feet. Let a new way begin of thinking and returning to what the indigenous of this planet can teach you right now. And so it is.
So I want to talk about karma. And Kryon has told us that karma is a little different to what you may have heard, because before listening to Kryon, I always heard, oh, karma's going to get that person, they're going to get their karma. And so karma was always told as the law of causality. But the way that Kryon describes it is that it's a old energy mechanism to drive you to do certain things. It's a push-pull energy on your Akash. So this is what creates generations of firemen, generations of policemen, because they come in and they're karmically predisposed to do a certain thing. And for those on the bus that came here, Lee gave a story of what he was predisposed to do based on a past life. For those on the way back who didn't hear that story, Lee's going to share it with you. And this is exactly the energy that I'm talking about. You have in your Akash energy, unfinished business to make you do things. And the reason I'm saying that is because most of us here have dropped our karma. And this is the family we have found. Because I have a feeling most of who drop their karma, they almost feel alienated from their biological family. And so if that is you, I want to say that you have family. This is we create a new karmic family group. And Kryon says this is who you then become attracted to and who you start family relationships. And as I was going back through some of the channels from Kryon, in 2010, Kryon talked about how some of you have had really difficult biological families that haven't necessarily supported your journey in this discovery. Now, there are some few light workers who have had very supportive families on this journey. But the promise is this, that now that you've dropped your karma, when you come back in your next life, you carry all of that energetic accomplishment with you. There is that promise that you will come into that family, that you do not have to go through any of this hard learning stuff that you've experienced in this life. Does that make sense to everyone? And that is, we're seeing that now as well because we're in a new energy. And what does that mean? Well, it means we've passed the 2012 marker. There's a new energy on the planet that supports even more this evolution of our consciousness. And so this is really a time of congratulations that you are here with your spiritual family. You've dropped that karma and you are here. We're from all nations from around the planet, and we're sitting here, and it gives me chills thinking, you know, when groups would come here with the ancient Navajo and the ancestors, they're all one tribe. And that's who we are today. We are one tribe, and we have just realized it. And slowly, our brothers and sisters in humanity are also going to realize there is no separation. We are oneness. And that's always been the messages of the ancestors. It's not just oneness with each other, it's oneness with the earth and oneness with the rest of ourselves that stayed on the other side of the veil, which we get reunited with and we come back again. It's just a beautiful cycle of returning again and again and again. So that's my brief message that I wanted to share with you about karma. And now we're going to have a meditation from Elan and then hear what Kryon has to say in this beautiful heart that surrounds him.
Yeah, so let's get ourselves centered in any way you feel appropriate for you in this moment. Everyone can hear me well? Yes. Take a few deep, nourishing breaths. Gently, if you feel like, you may close your eyes. You may slow down your breathing. You may consciously connect with your breathing as the conscious breath connects with the consciousness of Gaia, as the conscious breath connects with your heart in a higher conscious way. Take it slowly. Let us create a very sacred moment for ourselves here. Every moment in life is truly sacred, but this one is with intention, with a group of old souls that in some way came with a purpose on this journey. And we are feeling that within us, through us, with the land, with the ancestors, with the keepers of the land, and with the beings that follow with us wherever we go. Just a moment ago, we all experienced Antelope Canyon. it truly is a bridge. It is as a portal. As a bridge between worlds. As you walk through it, you could feel in your body and in your multidimensionality, in your DNA, you can feel that there is something there that's beyond the physicality. Some, like other places on the earth, there's some places that are really, really unique. And we may not have the words to explain them, but we feel them. And where we feel them is through our hearts and through our connection with our breath and through our human multidimensionality and beyond. And maybe for some of you, you had even some visions or images or experiences that you may not be able to give a name, but you know they are real. And they are very personal to each of you. And sometimes sharing them may not feel something you want to do because it's a personal message just for you. And that is all right. It is truly a personal message just for you at this time. And from here on you can carry it with you. Take another deep breath. And as we have done before, we honor the land. We honor the ancestors, the keepers, the indigenous, and everyone who came before us and that will come after us. And in sacredness of spirit, God and creative source, in the compassionate heart and love, where there is no time, we are all connected. We truly are all one when we embrace in the heart. Take another deep breath. And while Kryon is about to give his third message on his journey, let us feel the connection even stronger, opening our hearts as far as we can, and as deep and as beautiful as we can have it.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. There are always layers of listenership, of awareness on all of these messages. And the first layer is those who sit in front of me. And quite often the messages are targeted to them. This is the third message in the series of what has been called the Monument Valley Tour of 2019. I say that because those listening might not always get the time reference, or the place reference, or the sequence reference. The last channel we gave was personal. And it was given mostly to honor the indigenous. So as we sit here, even before we tell the listenership where we are, these are sacred lands. The ones who lived here had the ancestors who they draw upon for wisdom of life. And we recognize them yet again. And we ask permission of those ancestors for this message. A message that's not necessarily about the land, this time, but a message of love and compassion, and one that I've given before in many ways. And so yet again, I work my way to that message through that which we've experienced yet today. This group sits here in the sun in a cool day, in a hill that overlooks the majesty of the land. And in this, they have just come from that which is one of the most photographed wonders of the natural world, Antelope Valley. And now they overlook that which is Lake Powell. Beautiful, still, the colors are rich around them, and they all shout that nature is beautiful. And there's much to learn from it. Dear ones listening past this group, if you saw photographs of Antelope Valley, you'd know, oh yes, that's where they are. For the photographs are worldwide. It's a canyon that changes dramatically with the seasons, with the position of the sun, and is never the same. It is perhaps one of the most beautiful places to the eye that you can imagine. And as I've said, one of the most photographed. It is open 365 days of the year, and multiple hundreds of tourists pour through there. Did you ever wonder what the indigenous felt when they discovered it? Did you ever put yourself in that place? What would it have been like for those who were just discovering this land and the beauty of it and the particulars of it, and they discovered that? Would they be impressed? Well, you'd have to put yourself in their place, dear ones. Number one, did it help them hunt? No. Did it help them fish? No. Was it something that would help them with the resources of the land? No. And so it did not become a place that was energetic for them as much as the ley lines of survival, of the stars that would help them to know what was going to happen, or what season was coming, or what the insects would do, or where the animals would go. Indeed, they saw the beauty. But it was over time, dear ones, and different cultures that would discover it and say, this is beautiful. So the point is this, that culturally, depending upon who you are, the time frame, and what you're looking for, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Today, you saw beauty. And that's going to lead me to the next thing. Outside of this place, I'm going to get esoteric. What is beauty to God? Many of you put your hands on the walls of the canyon, and inside you felt the energy. What were you really feeling there? If it was not all that important to the indigenous, what is it you were feeling? And I'm going to tell you, it's the thousands and thousands of those from all over the earth that went through there and gasped at the beauty. It was the honoring of nature and the canyons over the last 100 years. That's the crystalline grid. It remembers the honoring, and it imbues that into the granite and the sandstone. And so when you put your hands on the walls, you feel all of those who have come before. And you feel the beauty and the honoring of nature back. Because as you honor nature, as you sing to it, it eventually will sing back to you. How does God see beauty? Well, let's start here. I'm going to give a demarcation. One is this side of the veil, and the other is the other side of the veil. This side of the veil will be humanity in general. The other side of the veil is that realm where the Creator is, where the angelic beings are, where multidimensional energies come from. The veil has been described so many ways by so many historians that were spiritual. A veil is that which you cannot really see past because it's hidden from you. And there are those who had said that veil is set and never moves. That veil on the other side is where God lives, if you want to use that terminology, which is incorrect. This side of the veil, the three-dimensional or four-dimensional side, is where you live, which is not correct either. But that is the model. The part that you don't understand is the veil is variable. And I'm going to tell you yet again, before I even continue the channel of beauty and love and compassion, that one of the things that I want humans to understand and know is that that veil, which so many have said is absolutely set, there's God and then there's you, and there's the veil between. What if I told you that the veil varies depending upon the consciousness and the awareness of humanity? The more consciousness develops into oneness and understanding, as war goes away from this planet, and it will, as more are tuned in to the oneness, no matter what their spiritual belief, it happens everywhere. There is a softening that goes on. Every single time a planet goes into what I will call an advanced graduation status, that is to say that a consciousness starts to raise and raise through generation and generation, the veil between you and that angelic realm starts to lift. And you see clearer through it because of the evolution. And dear ones, if you haven't noticed, this is not necessarily a group veil that I talk about. How about you? When you started to awaken to the potential that there was a larger truth, when you started to awaken to perhaps a potential of oneness, an awareness that all humans had the right to worship, and you could love them all no matter what, because in basic terms, they all want the same thing. They all have families. They all have to survive. They all love, and they all have compassion at different levels. And an advanced awareness or an advanced human consciousness is going to awaken to those things. That there is a oneness with all other humans, no matter what their culture is. Let me ask, did the veil start to lift for you? And the answer is yes. Because suddenly it was all right to be more aware of things that were outside of the reality of what most people would believe. And I'm not talking about strange things or occurrences or visions. I'm talking about the feeling that you were in touch with something higher than you were before. And I mean in touch. I mean on a daily basis, you were able to get help and feel the love from the other side of the veil. Dear ones, 80 or more % of this planet believes in the afterlife, believes in the Creator, believes in one God. And so you're all set up to understand that there's a separation between you and that which is more spiritual on the other side of the veil. So humanity in general is aware of that. But the ones that I speak to right now, so many of you who have had that experience, a lifting of the veil for you. So it's individual as well as humankind potential. What I've told you for 30 years is that the potential for human evolvement is here. What I've told you for 30 years is that its relationship to the magnetic grid of the earth has been established with consciousness, and that is why the magnetics of the planet even moved in the 90s, to allow this higher consciousness with free will to show itself. All of these times I've told you the track is established with free will for humanity to start growing up, to leave the barbarians that you were behind, to have the absence of war eventually, and it's coming. And every time we say that, there are those naysayers who say it cannot happen because it never did. There are those who would say, well, it's a nice idea, Kryon, but of course it's ridiculous. Because if you look back on humanity, it never occurred. And that war is something we will always have. In fact, there are those who say you're overdue for the next one. And so that makes this message something that is controversial. But not near as controversial as what I'm about to tell you. What I have said for so many years now, for decades, that gets me in trouble with almost everyone. And I'll tell you, how does God see beauty? Do you believe in angels and esoteric spiritual guides? Flat out, that question to almost every human being, and they will say, at some level, yes. Because almost every spiritual system on the planet features those attributes. Angels, guides, helpers. In almost every spiritual system, there'll be hierarchies of those very things. And they'll give them names, and there'll be helpers in certain areas for health and safety, for weather. It is common to then get help from the other side of the veil through these ideas. Are these ideas accurate? Yes. Yes, they are. Because God, whatever that term means to you, the creator of all things, that which is inside you, has an entourage. And if you've identified it as angelic, that's the human feeling. That's as good as you can get. But remember this. Human beings can only project what they know from themselves. So the consciousness of humans then often is placed upon that which you don't understand. So the angelic realm often becomes simply humans that are different. An angel, for instance, is a multi-dimensional, beautiful helper, if you want to say, that is part of the realm of God. Multi-dimensional, beautiful. And yet for you to understand it, you have to put skin and wings on it and give it a name. You have linearized something that is multidimensional so that you can conceive of it. So you can already see that there is an issue with how you see things. And there's no judgment. It is as best as you can do. This is changing. For suddenly humanity is discovering in its science what a multidimensional thing is, where physics doesn't work the same, where time is adjusted. And that's the science. So if you apply that to the spiritual realm beyond the veil, you can see perhaps you're missing a great deal. and you are. What is beauty to God? Well, you'd have to then transfer that to ask, what are the attributes of the angelic realm and all of the helpers? What do you expect from them? And I'll tell you, they see the beauty on the planet. And you might say, well, have they been to Antelope Valley? And the answer is, they've been everywhere. But that's not what they see as beautiful. Like the indigenous didn't really see the Antelope Valley as something spectacularly beautiful because it didn't apply to the things that they needed, their survival, and the things that they thought had energy that were important. The valley did not give them a different opinion of the cosmos or the four directions of the compass. It didn't fit into the ceremonies. It didn't change what they did. How does God see beauty? You might already know. Every single human being on the planet, unique, like no other animal, like no other nature, put here as God's creation, is the most beautiful thing to the other side of the veil. Did you know that? Angels, always seen as beautiful, helper, miracles, all of the guides, they guide you to the good places, not the bad places. That ought to tell you a lot about what might be there on the other side of the veil. Beauty to God is you. And that's not what necessarily is taught on this planet universally, but someday it will be. Someday, I tell you this, in many generations from now, that will be common sense. That you are a part of the creation of the Creator. And there's not that much that separates you from the angels, except your consciousness and how far it will take you. If I told you that embedded in your DNA was angelic energy, I would get in trouble yet again. Because there are those who say, no, embedded in your DNA is horrible things. Things that you're going to be punished for. And this is where I want to tell you something, and I'll say it yet again. In this odd separation between humanity and that which is angelic, this veil, everything beyond that veil is precious and loving and loves you beyond measure. Compassion, benevolence, any word that you can even conjure up in any language that is good is there. And on this side of the veil is what you have created with free choice as humans. And it's not that. Free choice has created many layers of negative, dark things. And they all belong to human, not to God. And here's where the statement comes that I've heard for so many and for so long. Kryon, excuse me, are you saying that everything beyond the veil is good and everything here is not so good? That's a bit simplistic, don't you think? And here I will give the answer yet again. Listen to the answer. The answer is exactly. And when you get that, you'll be a better, more informed, more aware human being. Everything that is negative here, even the things you attribute to God, belongs to humans. All of it. God does not have the things that you've assigned to God. Judgment, punishment, horror, torture. The afterlife, even of children, going to a place where you burn them alive every day. You think that's God? Millions do. Millions do. Not understanding that on the other side of the veil, that doesn't occur. And the consciousness is not there anymore, and I'll say it again, any more than that's the consciousness you would have for your children. You would not assign that to your children, would you? No matter what they've done. This free choice that you have really means free choice. Free to take this planet anywhere you want to go. You might have noticed that Kryon does not give current advice over things that you do to yourselves. Whether it's all the controversy of the various types of radio frequencies you have in the air, or the chemtrails, or any of the things that may or not be affecting you. I don't talk about it. Because, dear ones, that's your karma. You do to yourselves what you do to yourselves. Part of the growth of consciousness is, will you clean up your act? Will you stop polluting to the degree will you kill yourselves? All of these things you are working with constantly. That is humans with humans. I am talking about the spiritual aspect of who you are. The things that are changing on the planet, the things that are starting to be revealed. Don't you find it interesting, yet again, that some of the darkest things that you've done to yourselves, or that's in your society, that have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, are just starting to be revealed now? Don't you find that odd? I'll tell you, this is all related to the shift of the magnetic field, to 2012, to an increased consciousness worldwide over dark things, starting slowly to clean things up that used to be uncleanable. And that includes some things that are coming, and you'll see them, and you'll see them. And this, dear ones, is the proof that humanity is starting to accelerate its involvement in general. And I sit in front of a group of people in this beautiful place, and those listening who can just imagine what this place is like, who are starting to see it in their own lives. Exactly. God is good, benevolent. There is much love for you. You are seen in the eyes of all of the entourage on the other side of the veil as magnificent. The soul that is in every single human being is forever and is part of God. That's where the soul came from. That's where it goes back to. And you're here for a little while. This is temporary. All of it. As beautiful as it is, as short as your life is, it's all temporary. Home is where the good stuff is. There'll come a time when the veil will blur. And there'll be the realization that the angelic realm is starting to be available. And then there will be a more firm affirmation that perhaps it's inside. Kryon, you speak in riddles. No, I don't. Not really. Any more than the riddles of the indigenous have to be figured out because they work in metaphors. So do I. But you have to examine these things to understand a little more. Death has no sting, dear ones, except to the ones left behind. And I want you to realize that and understand that. That every single one of you will take a last breath again. And every single one of you will awaken within a short amount of time and hear the music. And see that light. And you'll know again, whew, I'm home again. That's a promise. And every single human being has had a near-death experience is changed for the rest of their life. Did you know that this magnetic grid that you have around the earth is part of your consciousness? Were you aware that you need the magnetic grid to live? I'll say it again. If you're going to go into space, scientist, you better take the grid with you. You better assimilate it somehow and take it with you. You ought to study it to make sure you understand what it's doing, what it's not doing. Because you can only go so long without it before your body starts to deteriorate. I've never mentioned this before, not like this. There are a few men who have gone beyond the grid as astronauts and spent time, and they were changed forever. And some of you can find this in books and interviews, where they go out as astronauts or military or scientists and come back as painters and artists and poets. And you might say, well, what has that got to do with anything? I just gave you something to think about regarding the magnetic grid of this earth and reasons for it and how it's tied in to you, to the indigenous, to the land, to the other side of the veil, to the angelic realm, to what's going on in the shift right now. You or the Antelope Canyon to the angelic realm. They line up to see if you're listening. Some of you are, and some of you are not. But it does not detour them at all. These helpers, these angels, are next to you all your life. And with free choice, you may find them. And with free choice, you may ignore them. And there is no judgment. Because again, we'll see you, and the party is real. The party after life is real. The big aha is real. When you awaken and realize you are part of the angelic realm, and all that is here is artificial to some degree, a test to some degree, and temporary until that place where the veil is no more. And you as humans are one with your higher self. I've seen it. It happens in other places of this galaxy. It's even the reason you're here. That may seem a mystery to you for now. I give this message in a place where the ancestors smile. And they say, this is the message we have always given to the indigenous that are here, who know they are part of the 4 compass headings and are part of the stars and the cosmos and of nature, and play their part in a dance with the elements that keeps them surviving for century after century after century without any depletion of nature. Being one with these things is the most wise thing you'll ever learn again. That's it for now. Leave this place knowing you're magnificent. Truly. And so it is.
Hey, Ananate. I'll just sing you a small Walking Beauty song. Okay, this is more a contemporary. This is a contemporary Walking Beauty song, and it goes like this. Shi nasha, Allah Allah go nasha, Allah Allah go nasha. Shi nasha bige hwajala ea heinaya, Allah Allah go nasha, Allah Allah go nasha. Shi nasha bige hwajala ea heinaya. Shitachi hwajo nasha, shitachi hwajo nasha. Shi nasha bige hwajola ea heinea. Allah Allah go nasha, Allah Allah go nasha. Shi nasha bige hwajola ea heinea. Shinechi hwajo nasha, Shinati Hojona Sha, Shi Nasha Bige Hojola Ea Henea, Nshnati Hojona Sha, Nshnati Hojona Sha, Shi Nasha Bige Hojola Ea Henea, Nshlaji Hojona Sha, Nshlaji Hojona Sha, Shi Nasha Bige Hojola Ea Henea, Shiaji Hojona Sha, Shiaji Hojona Sha, Shi Nasha Bige Hojola Ea Henea, Shikaji Hojona Sha, Shikaji Hojona Sha, Shi Nasha Bige Hojola Ea Henea, Ala Ala Go Nasha, Ala Ala Go Nasha, Shi Nasha Bige Hojola Ea Henea, Al Tchodji Hojona Sha, Al Tchodji Hojona Sha, Shi Nasha Bige Hojola Ea Henea. Now, just to translate, I said this is a prayer that we use in our culture, and in the prayer, it's also sung as a song, and it goes, there's beauty before me, there's beauty behind me, there's beauty on the right side of me, there's beauty on the left side of me, there's beauty below, there's beauty above, all around me I walk in beauty. What more appropriate for the place, right? Yeah.
Thank you, Marietta, for honoring us. So I'm going to lead a meditation, and I won't reveal everything that's going to go through as we go through it, until we go through it. So I'd like to ask you to pair, to find a partner. It can be your own partner, it can be your friend, it can be your soul, family here, and find a partner. And you will need to be facing your partner, so you can sit in a position that's comfortable for you, and not far from your partner, because you're going to need to reach him or her. If you want to stand, that is okay too, although you may need to hold this posture for a while. If you don't have a partner, you will find a way to do the exercise between you and Gaia and creation. Is everyone feeling comfortable? You will need to face each other, yes. And throughout the exercise, I would ask you to hold this posture as we go through the exercise into the channeling, until the channeling is completed. Take a deep breath and find your center of peace in this peaceful place. This peaceful place reflecting back into your own peace. If someone, I want to make sure that no phones starting off. If you think your phone is going to start beeping, please make sure it's turned off. Center yourself. Take the slow, conscious breaths. Connect with your breath. Consciously, slowly, feeling it going through you, feeling the earth breath going through you, pulling from the earth the energy that is here. Breathe deeply and slowly. Let your mind and thoughts rest for this moment. Let us suspend time here in this timeless space. Take more conscious, slow breaths. Peace, stillness, serenity is all around you. Is also all in you. And you find the merging of the two, between your inner world and your outer world, all through the breath and the connection to your heart. Keep breathing, keep feeling. See what the land has to tell you and to speak to you right now. Open to it, let it, allow it, receive it. There is no time. There's truly no time at all. It is always an illusion. So we are stepping out of time and we are experiencing more of the oneness in nature, a oneness in the universe, a oneness with all that is, in all levels of creation, in all dimensions. We are always connected to it. We are always allied with it. When you are ready, place your right hand on your heart, gently in a place that is most comfortable for you. Feel that small but powerful organ that you don't have to ever think about how it works, that is always there, keeping you in this dimension, in this body, in this experience. Feel it. There is no thoughts here. It's all about the feeling. Now, with your left hand, reach out to your partner and place your left hand, while keeping your right hand on your heart, on your partner's hand that is placed on his heart. And allow yourself to feel both of your hearts. And feel the stillness, the peacefulness, the love, the compassion, the deep gratitude, and all the benevolent attributes of the heart passing through you, passing from one soul to another, passing from one soul to another, passing from one soul to another. There is no time. There is no place. There is only energy. There is only love. Your pure state is always love. And this body and this earth is temporary. Fall deeper into that space of energy of the heart. Let yourself immerse into it. Breathe. Now, slowly and gently, as you face each other in this posture, open your eyes and look into each other's eyes. Let the face and features disappear and focus your attention in the eyes alone. As the eyes are the window to the soul, And we recognize soul to soul. And while maintaining that gazing, you are also maintaining the heart connection and the focus of the heart and the eyes. There is no body. You are no body. You are experience of energy. You are consciousness, looking at consciousness. You are pure wisdom, looking at wisdom. You are ancient, you have no beginning and no end. You are always here, and you will always will be. There is no beginning, there is no end. Don't hold yourself back. Never hold your tears back. You are in a supportive, loving, conscious soul family. There is only love here. There is no judgment. There is only love here. There is no judgment. Give this moment to yourself. For this moment is powerful, is eternal, is unconditionally created by you for you right now. Let your mind and thoughts rest. There is nothing else but you in this moment, gazing into another soul. And you know that soul. You know it in your heart that you have been on other journeys before. You just know it. And in this knowing, you found a deeper level of connection. In this space where we are loved by the ancestors who weep for us as we look at each other and gaze. Because this is also their teachings, that we are one with everything. There is no beginning. There is no end. There is only a circle. And in this circle, we are one. Breathe. Feel. Expand your experience. You are a creator. You are a multi-dimensional, powerful being with a Merkaba that speaks, that understands, that knows everything that you ever been and you ever will be. Seeing all your potentials. Don't hold anything back. Because this moment is precious. This moment will last forever. Immerse yourself deeper into it. Don't hold anything back. We are here to live in pure, allied joy. We are here to be love, to be compassion, to be benevolent. Breathe. You are the I am that I am. You are all that is, and you know it. It was always with you and will always be. Breathe. There is no limit to your abilities to expand your heart. It's just your mind that may hold you back. There is no limit to anything you can do. And if you are in need for some healing right now, ask for it within your heart. And draw from the earth and from this sacred space the energy that you are asking for. And let it speak to you. In a no-time place, it will come to you. Breathe and stay in this posture as we invite a multitude of beings into the light that we are creating here, into this family, our larger family, uncounted for it is so big and so immense, in a place of love that we cannot comprehend with our mind, but we can feel with our hearts.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. This is the fourth message in this precious land. And before I begin yet again, we ask permission of the ancestors for this message in this place, in this amazing alcove where the ancients lived. We've been here before, one time, and it's just as amazing now. The energy of the ancestors remains and remains. Through generation after generation, the ancestors will always be here. And the chief reason for that is that they would always be available for wisdom and help for those who would be in this place, who would walk the land, and that includes the visitors. For it's time to share the wisdom of the ancients, learned right here, with those who would consider them from modern culture, who need to know so much that no one has ever told them. And so we ask permission of these ancestors at this point for what we are going to give and the message, which is just a little different yet again. Dear ones, you may be aware, especially here, of the four sacred directions. And it plays very significantly to this culture and how they approach spirit. And they're not alone. For there are cultures all over the planet who will honor the four sacred directions before they will do anything else. I'm going to do something we have done in other places like this. The four directions have names. And they are the names, supposedly, of the compass. Now, if I were to follow the protocol of the culture here, I would honor them in a certain order, and I'm not going to do that. And the reason is we're going to honor them in a very unique way, and it would be different every single time. If I sat here tomorrow, it would be different then. It's like this. The wind blows not necessarily from one sacred direction. And if the wind blows from a certain direction, the one who is tuned in to the land would understand what's coming, or what that means, or if a season is changing too abruptly, or if there is weather shifting that is unusual. It has to do with water, it has to do with hunting, it has to do with all of the things that you would have to survive. If the wind blows another direction, it's the same. And you never know which direction the wind will come from or go toward. And so what I am saying in this parable is that at this moment the wind is blowing from one sacred direction, and so it's going to change the order that we will speak of the directions. It's the wind of the day. And in this, I'll also say, we're not going to honor the directions, but instead do something we've done before. We're going to take the first initials of the letters of the directions in English, and in this moment assign meanings to them for teaching. So let us speak first and honor the East. And today the East, starting with the letter E, is going to stand for enlightenment. Now, what would I have to speak of regarding enlightenment? It's such a common name and word and meaning. And there are so many old souls listening right now who would say, yes, I understand what that means. So I'm going to redefine it. Enlightenment today is going to be any single human being who sits there and knows that they don't know everything. Because what comes next that they don't know becomes a light that shines upon something that they didn't know. Therefore, an enlightened human being can be anywhere at any time, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with spirituality or culture. Any single human who says, I know what I have been told, and I know my traditions, and I know the ancients, and I know my parents, and I know my church, but I am open for something newer and grander because the times are changing and the wind is blowing from another direction. We have said this before. The Creator is the Creator and never changes. The earth is the earth and never changes. But what does change is the relationship of the human being to all of that. Therefore, as much as you think you know, or even that which your ancestors have told you, there may be more. For as your consciousness starts to raise, the earth may show you more than it's even shown the ancestors. As your consciousness starts to raise, the Creator, the veil, the angelic realm, whatever you wish to call it, may very well show you more than you had before. And so it's the allowance of that that creates an enlightened human being. To show you how practical this is, and the fact that it's not necessarily allied to belief systems, imagine the difference between an enlightened and unenlightened physicist. Now, the physicist who is unenlightened is the one who says, I believe everything that has been discovered is accurate and true, and the laws of physics are static, and they don't move, and this is the way the universe works, and I can prove it over and over and over, and have done so all my life. The enlightened physicist is the one who says that and also says, but it can change. And the things that change that may surprise the physicist is as follows. Physics in an older energy is where you measure things to discover what you consider the laws. And you write them down, and that becomes that which is solid, unchangeable. And that's the way you work. And you work with that which you need to in all the inventions and all that you believe. You've created a law, and it is forever. And the enlightened physicist says, yes, but I know that it's not a law, it's simply a default. In other words, when you don't change anything, that's what you get. To the physicist who might be listening, if you're going to measure the things that Newton has measured, that you believe that he has given you, that you have used for so long, you can start to look at the elements of the formulas of physics, especially that of gravity. And you have things called mass and density. And you look at those and you say, if this is this, and this will be this, and that will weigh this and that, what if any of those were variable? What if you could change mass? You have a marble on a table and you know all about it because you know how much it weighs, where it is, how fast it will fall, and how it will move. And you write it down and you move on. Meanwhile, the marble is sitting there and saying, yes, but what if you changed my mass? I might not weigh as much. I might not then do what you think. What if all the laws were only defaults, just waiting for you to change some of the parameters? That is an enlightened physicist who says, I don't know what I don't know, but nothing is forever. There is no law which is unchangeable. And when you plug this into your everyday life, dear ones, you walk around and you say, I know what my mother told me and my father told me and my church told me, and I respect them and I'm using them, but I'm always open in case it gets better. I'm always open for something that is even grander, that might be new and enhance everything. Wouldn't it be spectacular if right now the earth started speaking to you in a way that it never did before? And if you said, why now? It would say, because humanity is to a place where they can hear it, and before they could not. Does that make your grandfather wrong? Does that make your parents wrong? Does that make your church wrong? No, it does not, because they were only hearing what was possible. And now, in a new energy of enlightenment, more things are possible and more things are hearable and seeable. And it starts to then change everything you do. This message, like so many others, is controversial, because there are those who say, don't confuse me with what I've been told. And that's the difference between enlightenment and non-enlightenment. And that is E for East. Let us go to the south and use the letter S, and it's going to be for synchronicity. Synchronicity is considered to be luck, sometimes considered chance. You're at the right place at the right time, and synchronicity will create then something special for you. Part of the new energy, even that of where the earth speaks to you differently, is expecting things that used to be chance. Now I sit here in a land where those ancestors always tried to tell you that you could control chance. And that is for the weather, it is for hunting, it is for survival, that if you do certain things certain ways and expect certain things, the earth will cooperate. This is ancient information, and now you're relearning it on a day-by-day basis. Dear ones, consciousness is energy. And if you put that energy to work in expectations, you actually can warp the whole idea of chance. And you can bring it to yourself. Kryon, are you saying that we can control certain things outside of normal control? Yes. Can you go to a place expecting to meet somebody you think you might need to know, with information you might need to have? And the answer is yes. It has to do with designed consciousness, how you posture your life. Do you go from place to place with an attitude that nothing will ever change, or that nothing is going to get better for you? Do you go and have a position or an attitude of sameness all the time and just walk through life? Well, I'll say it again. This is so profound, dear ones. Consciousness is so profoundly energy and works so well that if that's what you think, that's what you'll get. If you say to yourself, nothing good ever happens to me, you have just placed an order with the universe that nothing good will ever happen to you. It's almost like there was an entourage of ancestors listening to what you want, as described by you, out of your own mouth, out of your own consciousness, and you say, woe is me. Nothing ever changes for me. Nothing good will happen. And there's so much of this, dear ones, out of the mouths of so many in a culture who have been trained into that the ancestors will sit around and hear that and go, and this is what you should have. But for the human being who understands that the consciousness can actually change chance, you then can give that order like on a menu. I will meet the right person who has the right information. I'll be in the right place at the right time. And you walk from place to place expecting good things to happen, expecting that which will enhance your life. And I'm sitting here telling you that makes a difference. And it's not wishful thinking. It's you creating with the energy of consciousness. Can you change the weather with the energy of consciousness? Dear ones, yes, yes. And the ancients have been doing it for thousands of years. And that was S. The North is going to be the N, and I cannot help myself. It's the new human. The new human is what I have been talking about for so many years. A human being who looks nothing like the historical human being. The new human who sits and understands the energy of compassion and how it works. The new human who will be placed in so many areas of life, not just that which is spiritual. You'll find the new human emerging, believe it or not, in politics. You'll find the new human emerging, believe it or not, in corporate work. The human who starts to understand a new process of how people think and what people really are starting to want that history would say they never wanted before. The new human has one specific attribute that is so different from the older human. The older human looks at history and says it will repeat. What has happened before will happen again. It's a circle. Take a look. Don't expect anything different. The new human will understand that it does not have to repeat because there are new attributes coming and here that will then change the future and the potentials of everything. The new human gives an attribute of not hope, but of actual designed reality. The new human will understand that when new things are happening regarding consciousness, that it cannot repeat an old consciousness in the future. Therefore, what I'm telling you, the past does not count as a measurement for what is coming. And the longer you exist, the more you will see this, dear ones. And there will be always those who will be naysayers in this and say, you're crazy. You've got thousands of years of humanity to look at, and you've got human nature to look at, and you're launching out as though it didn't matter or it didn't work that way. The new human will face off with that person and says, it doesn't work that way anymore. It's coming. Some of you already see it in some of the things that are happening on the planet. The last sacred direction that we wish to talk about is west. You see, they're not in the correct order. West today, right now, is going to stand for women. Dear ones, do not misunderstand the words of Kryon if you are just listening to this for the first time. This has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with that which you would call the rights of women. It has everything to do with common sense. What you're going to start to see is that there will be an acknowledgement that women do something better than men. And the first is giving birth. Add on to that what they do after they give birth. They train their children. They have compassion. They have patience. As a child in trouble, who's the one you ran to? It was your mom. The women carry the equipment mentally and consciously to be spiritual guides of this planet. They have the highest intuition factor of either gender. And that will then allow them to have the shamanic energy that you need to guide you into the future. Right now, dear ones, there are many belief systems on this planet that are male heavy. And I will tell you, they cannot remain that way. They'll dwindle. And if they're listening right now, I'll tell you it has nothing to do with politics or war or anything. It has to do with your young people who will not agree. What happens to a culture when your young people look at it and say, not for me, and leave? And the answer is, it starts to dwindle, and everything precious to you will start to leave because no one will be interested. Indeed, you're going to start seeing this revelation in certain belief systems where men only in the past have had leadership, and now women are starting to have it as well. And when they both have it, it'll be obvious who does a better job. And slowly, you will see the feminine, like the mother, is the one you're going to want to turn to for spiritual advice. As strong as the men are, the women can do it better. And dear ones, this has been the way of it in ancient times and is starting to return today. And so as the wind blows in this moment, as I sit in this chair with my partner, these are the attributes that I wanted to talk about that just happen to honor the four sacred directions. And so it is.
Take a deep breath. Relax into this space. Breathe deeply. Feel the connection in your heart and in your body again to this land, to this earth, to the rocks, and even to the cold wind that embraces and goes through this space. Cold can be a powerful catalyst, just like any other element. It's all in our perception. So breathe with the cold. And feel and drop deeper into your heart, which is the quantum engine of your multi-dimensional being. Feel each other here, supporting each other on this journey, as we are now, we could say, are halfway through the tour. And let your minds and thoughts rest and relax into the arms of Spirit. As we're about to receive another message from the other side of the veil.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. This is the fifth message on the ancient lands of the Navajo, the Dina, of what you called the Monument Valley Tour. It is cool and it's in the evening and it's still. And you gather around and yet again you listen to the words. I want to present to you very briefly something I'm going to call ultimate spiritual logic. And I present it to you in a fashion that should appeal to your mind, and the part of your mind that is not necessarily esoteric, and yet it's about spiritual things. More than spiritual things, it's about you, your body, your cellular structure, and your health. Inside each of you is something that you have named and you call innate. Others have called it the smart body. And it's been used by healers for a very long time. But dear ones, this is going to involve self-healing. And I want to present this briefly, but succinctly, so you'll understand the logic of these things. For years, those who have done what you have called kinesiology or muscle testing have called upon this innate to give messages that you cannot gather from your consciousness alone. Internally, your body is responsible for so many things, for its chemistry, for its health, for fighting disease, and all of these things seem to be hidden from you. You cannot even tell if a disease has attacked you until it hurts. That's not necessarily very enlightened, is it? And yet this is the way, at the moment, the human body works. But innate knows it at the second that the bacteria might affect you. You don't have to wait for it to hurt. It knows already. There are so many things that you don't know. If you've never tested, you really don't know what you're allergic to. You have to test. But innate knows. And so here's the premise. Kinesiology works. And it's been proven over and over that you can interrogate the innate. So right away, the premise is this. Innate is real. Not only that, it gives you messages. This may tell you something very important. Your body is listening and wants to help. Innate actually knows that your consciousness is at the moment in time disconnected. And so it is there all the time. And kinesiologists know it. Those who interview the body with other processes know it. Healers have known this forever and have tried to interrogate innate in each of you who wants to find out what is wrong, how to work with it, all of these things. It's real. Now stop this for a moment and, what my partner likes to say, turn the page. One of the most ancient healing techniques is called homeopathy. And the homeopathy is also something been proven for hundreds of years to work. Now this involves the innate as well, for it is a signal or an instruction with tinctures taken under the tongue to innate to heal. A homeopathist is one who then prepares the tinctures for the instructions of the body. Now, if you haven't heard of this before, the tinctures are so small, there could possibly, no possible way, there could be a body reaction. And yet they work. And so you have innate listening at some degree for what you are putting into the tincture and giving instructions for healing. It works. The next thing I want to say is to extend the logic to the next phase. And the next phase is this. Recently, in the last 15 years, consciousness has been proven to be energy. So much so that even science is looking at that energy and how it might then react and act in physics, consciousness. Therefore, why not have something which we will call conscious homeopathy, where you could instruct your body to the same degree that a tincture of homeopathy would? The problem with this, dear ones, is it comes from inside you. And you cannot then disengage when you give your body instructions. There's emotion around it. A tincture has no emotion. It is a flat instruction to do something. And the body does it. So the missing piece for consciousness and healing is that you have to start understanding the process that you need with your own body to start instructing it. First of all, you may not know what to ask it specifically. You don't know the chemistry. You don't perhaps even know what might be wrong with you. So instead, your instructions would be to heal that which you don't understand, but what the innate does. Believe me, that is a bridge. If the innate hears that instruction, it knows what to do, because it comes from the boss. It comes from the master who is in charge of every cell. And yet the master is also doing something else. The master has an emotion that says, I sure hope this works. Sometimes the master is saying, please. When is the last time you had a tincture say please? Do you understand where I'm going with this? And so the process and the exercise, if you want to have it, is an instruction that is in order, without emotion, without wishing, without hoping, but a matter of fact, it is done, you're doing it because it works. How many centuries do you need of these things working through other processes for you to understand it can also work the best way, and that is from the top down. Consciousness, ordering cellular structure to do that which is the most healthy. Do you want to frame it? You'd say, innate, these are your instructions. I do not know what is hurting or why at this moment, but you're to go in and balance. And if there's something that needs to be shown to me that I don't know, you'll show it. These are the things that I am ordering you to do. Go do it. There's a tendency for all old compassionate souls to address their innate as though it were a person. And you say, thank you for this. Please, I'm so happy you're on board. It's on board. And you don't have to address it that way. You don't have to ask it. Because it always has its antenna up. And if you could interrogate innate right now, it would say, thank you for doing this, because this is what we need. This is really what we need. We need instructions, not wishes. We need instructions and not hopes. Don't ask us, tell us what to do. Because innate is you. It's survival. And we want you to stay a long time. This is the tip of the iceberg of where these things are going, of how to then manipulate your own consciousness in a way for yourself that your body will understand and work, that's different from meditating or praying for something. You're ordering your own cells to behave. And believe me, they are listening. You'll see. That's enough for now, as the sun has now disappeared completely. And here comes the cold. And so it is.
So let us again center ourselves where we are. Relax in any way you feel appropriate for you at this moment. Slow your breathing. Feel your heart. If it is appropriate for you, you may place a hand on your heart to help deepen the connection. Consciously feel your breath. Feel your heart. Breathe slowly and deeply, further deepening our connection. Further deepening our connection. Further deepening our connection. You may call on your own guides and support, the angelic realm, to be with you. Not only the ancestors of the land, but also your ancestors. Those that you know of, and those that you may not remember, but from the lineage of your ancestry. You may call them to be here now with you. Breathe deeply. Breathe slowly. And open and expand your heart even more. Open and expand your heart even more. Feel your vastness, your immenseness, your infinite self. Beyond this space, beyond this time, all in a circle, all in the now. You are connected. in your I am that I am, in the Eheye Asher Eheye, to all that is. Eheye Asher Eheye. Eheye Asher Eheye. Feel, sense, imagine Eheye Asher Eheye. Breathe slowly and deeply. And listen to your heart. Let your mind and thoughts rest. Listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. It is always listening to you. Listen to your heart. It is eternally in love with you. Listen to your heart. It is always in love with you. It is your healing center. It is your peace center. It is the center of your beingness, of oneness that connects all that is. Listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. And as we called upon your ancestors and the ancestors of this land and the multitude of beings that surround us and that have been with us throughout this journey and beyond, we welcome the Kryon entourage for another message beyond the veil.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. It's a sweet place, this. The message is a continuation of the messages we have given so far in this which is called the Monument Valley Tour. It's message number 6. It's given on February 14 in your year of 2019, which according to your culture and your custom is Love Day. The message today would be no different than any other about love, except that it's more appropriate than ever. So again, dear ones, please allow me, with the blessing of the ancestors in this place, to one more time, for the ears perhaps of those who've not heard it, to reveal some things that we've revealed before, perhaps a little differently, that talks about the majesty of the creative source. Almost every human on the planet, no matter what belief system, knows about the creative source. And as the belief would go, the entire universe was created by one source. Infinitely small you are compared to the universe, and yet infinitely large is the creative source. And if you wanted to put a personality on that source, as often you do as humans, the source is love. Pure love. Nothing but love. As pure as light can be, it is with no darkness at all. Beautiful, benevolent, compassionate love. And we've said it before, as much love as you can imagine for your friends, your pets, your child. It's 1,000 times what that is. And it's focused, dear ones, on the living portions of the creative source, which is you. Dear ones, there's other life in this galaxy, and it's focused on that as well. The creative source is the source of everything. And there's love imbued in that purity in everything. And the reason I start with this yet again, is to let you know that you, dear ones, have created this veil that you look through to that love. And on this side of the veil, this being where we are right now, this human side, you have duality. And in the duality, there is positive, there is negative, there's light, there's dark, there's all kinds of things which are created by what you call human nature. And it's actually appropriate, fair, and correct, because this gives you the free choice. Because you can see the things that are yin and yang, positive and negative, and you make the choice. But let me tell you something. On the other side of the veil, that creative source, which is so big you can't imagine it, there is no duality there. And there would be those who would say, of course there's no duality there, and they would nod their head. And yes, but really, truly, do you understand this? There's only duality here. And yet, there are so many who will then take the duality that is here in this small little earth, where you struggle with a low percentage of light. And you struggle with your duality, and you struggle to improve constantly with free choice. But you take that struggle and you place it upon what you believe is on the other side of the veil. And you have made God then dysfunctional at the core. You've taken this love, pure source, and you've said, well, we are humans, all we know is human nature, therefore everything has to be like us. And then there is an angry God, and one who does not get pleased all the time, and one who would actually torture children. And this is the belief system about that beautiful creative source. And again, I will tell you, you've taken yourselves and pasted it on that which is sacred. Let's speak about where that leads and what happens. Because the next step is the creation then of sin. And if you would then ask those who believe in the sin, what is it? Define sin. It's that which displeases God. Anything that displeases God then is sin. And then if there is sin, there must be forgiveness. Let me tell you something, dear ones. Pure love, at the absolutely purest of love, is unable to be displeased. God does not have a human brain that has pleasure and not pleasure, or judgment or not judgment. Pure love is pure love. It doesn't even enter. It cannot. It's like taking the purest light you could ever imagine and trying to throw mud at it and thinking it'll stick like it sticks on you. And yet there are billions on the planet that have put mud on God. Forgiveness, dear ones, in a spiritual world is almost an industry. I want you to think for a moment. If you took children and wanted to make a test of their free will and you put them in a dark place where they could barely see, and then they run into walls and they run into each other, and every time they run into a wall or run into each other, you dock them and call it sin, and you punish them. You take them out, punish them, put them back. Because they ran into a wall because they couldn't see well. That's exactly what you have said God does to you. Not all of you, but billions of you. And this, dear ones, will be part of the shift. A spiritual awakening of logic. God is not human. God would not do that. And yet sin has created forgiveness, an industry. If you don't think it's an industry, even within the spiritual, just look at your history. We sat in a place you would call Italy, and we spoke of a man you would call Francis, in a place you would call Assisi. And the most sacred of leaders at that point in time was the Pope in Italy. And that Pope at that moment was selling forgiveness of sin. Inappropriate to the max, you might say. And Francis saw it because Francis was pure and he was filled with the love of the creative source. He wasn't filled with the pompousness of the Pope. The story of Francis is quite amazing. For today he's Saint Francis, and yet he never was a priest. But he was attractive. Like any other master of this planet who is pure, he was attractive because of his purity and his love. And even the priests of the church were attracted to him because of what he believed and said, how he acted, what he did in his life, what he showed people he could be. That was Francis. We've told you before that he bribed the Pope. For he needed money for his enclave. He needed money for his animals. He needed money for his hospital. And so he told the Pope something because the Pope met with him. He had to because he was pulling away priests. He was becoming dangerous in his purity. And he said to the Pope, if you'll give me the money for these things, I will then stop being that attractive because you will then stop selling forgiveness of sin. And that was the agreement. And in the church in Francis of Assisi, there's even a painting that portrays it, although the people who would then guide you through that church won't then identify that painting of that way. In fact, that painting shows Francis of Assisi and the Pope meeting with a scroll of demands from Francis to the Pope. A list, you might say, an agreement, you might say, so the Pope would stop selling sin, forgiveness. The guides will tell you it's a list of Francis' sins. I'm going to tell you it's in a contract that changed who the Pope was, changed the church, and made it more pure. That's the kind of an industry forgiveness has become to some. In some ways, it becomes an industry of fear. If you don't have that kind of forgiveness from a God who's going to judge you from that pure love thing, then there's the fear of what might happen to your soul. And these things, dear ones, are not from God. They cannot be from the pure source of light and love, which is not a consciousness of a human. It has come from humans to humans, humanity, systems. The most inappropriate thing that is here today on this planet is fearing the source of light. when all that source wants to do is love you. Love is the message of the day. Earlier today, dear ones, you had a forgiveness exercise, but it had nothing to do with a spiritual forgiveness. It had to do with human to human. And that is the forgiveness I want to speak of. I want to talk about what it means, and perhaps in a way you haven't heard before. I want you to right now relax in the arms of God, whatever that word means to you, just for a moment, and see that precious pure light as I tell you this story. The story is, again, a logic story. More than that, it defines the attributes of your brain. So you'll understand what you're doing when you start to forgive. Coming right from the light, right now, I want to show you this. When each of you were a child, there came a time when you had that moment where you would burn your hand or your arm or your leg with something hot. It happens to every child because as much as their parents will warn them against heat, there comes a time when you test it. And at that moment when you burn your hand or your finger, as a child, dear ones, even before you can speak, that episode will etch itself into the neurons of your brain, in the synapse of the place and the bundles where memories are kept. The burning of the hand is there all your life. Now, the reason I tell you this, in a moment you'll find out, it's permanent. It would be nice if you could undo it, if you could delete it, but you can't. Your brain is not like the current day computer. There's no delete key. It stays there. It stays there. Now, in the case of burning your hand, it's survival. It stays there because it needs to stay there. So you won't forget it. But that's the way of the brain. But it also happens with something else. Dear ones, it happens with betrayal. It happens with unkindness. It happens with the trauma of experience. It happens with abusive parents to children. All of that etched upon the brain. And at time, perhaps even when you're an adult, when you have betrayal, when you have these kinds of things, it etches itself in the same place where you burned your hand. And in those places, it stays, and you can't undo it. And so today, you went through an exercise where you might have written some of those things down, and it might have been difficult to even write them. Because these are the things you want to forget. Because to remember them brings up all the feelings again, just like burning your hand. And all of those feelings will come to a head, and there will be tears, and there will be uncomfortableness and sorrow. And so most of you stay away from those things, but all of you have them to some degree, more than others for some. And you wrote them down, which was difficult, and you burned them in a significant ceremony to say, they're gone. This is how I see it. They're gone. But I just told you they're not. But your ceremony is telling your brain that they are. Let me tell you what you did today, and anyone else listening, and the parables I've given in the past about what a Lemurian woman would do as she burns the leaf that she has etched on these things into the volcano fire. Because I've even channeled before that this is an appropriate thing to do, as you did today. So let me give you a vision of how you take something in your brain that is forever until your last breath, just like burning your hand, and instead you transform it. Whatever that was that you wrote on the piece of paper, or for those listening who didn't do the exercise, whatever it is that you could think of that is the betrayal of the thing that eats at you at night when you sleep or doesn't let you sleep, the thing that can't forget because it was so awful to you, so uncomfortable, so sorrowful to you, whatever it is, even if it's a memory where you're asking forgiveness of yourself because you keep bringing it up and beating yourself like a little whip with it, it's still there. So I want you to have this vision of what really might be happening in your brain, what you do. And it has to do with the power of compassion and love. In the yin and yang scenario, in the black and white scenario, of all the things that a human being can do, one of the most beautiful things is this. You have a piece of the creative source in you that is multidimensional and goes beyond that which any human being could do by themselves, and it's called the higher self. That higher self, think of this, it's your soul that has 1 foot on the other side of the veil and 1 foot here, metaphorically, as it would stand there. It is the conduit, the bridge, the one that you're always trying to get to. But let me tell you, here's where you can use it. Because that higher self is also like a direct contact, conduit, wire, whatever, to the purest light and love you can imagine. And so let's see if you can vision this because of what you did today with the fire, and you have that pure, bright light like a searing fire, except it's not a destructive fire. It's an encompassing connection that circles the memory with compassion. There it is in your brain, and I want you to see, coming from the other side of the veil, a shell. You can't delete it biologically, but here comes that beautiful shell of compassion that is so beautiful and so loving, and it encircles that memory, that thing that you want to have go away, that you say, I want to forgive that person or those people or myself, whatever that's the encompassing shell of multidimensional light that encompasses and forgives. And it goes right around that memory in your brain, so that every single time you go back to that, it's covered with forgiveness, compassion, and love, and you can never get to that hurtful place again. So complete would it be that you could even go in there with a set of tools, and you can't get to it. So what you've done is, instead of eliminating it, you've transmuted it, covered it with love. This has to make sense to you. The vision is more accurate than you know. It has to do with complex consciousness, dear ones. And so we've simplified it so that it can be visualized and acted upon and understood. There are those who will tell you that those things that you wrote on the paper are forever. And I'm here to say they're right. But how you treat them and how they work with your consciousness from now on in your life is not forever and can be transmuted. Psychologists have worked on this for decades. And here it is yet again, in a way I'm presenting. And I'm telling you this, it's permanent. In a linear world, there are so many things that you do over and over and over and over because more is better. In a multidimensional world, once you throw the switch, it's forever. That's much different. There'll be those who tell you how many times you have to count the beads. in order for certain things to happen, or how many times you have to say a phrase before God will hear you. I'm telling you this, God knows you so well that if you simply look into the eyes of the Creator, it's gone. One time. That's how powerful you are with yourself. So I want you one more time to envision that burning piece of paper today that you had. And see not only the paper smoldering and going away, but suddenly the connection to the other side of the veil coming in and covering those things, whether it was you who had to forgive yourself or you're forgiving somebody else. Doesn't matter. Whatever memory. There's somebody in the audience needs to hear this because there was a death of a child. And that is something profound, Mom. You're never going to forget that. And it's so sorrowful. You start putting that together, where you put that compassion, and then you start having all of these revelations. And the revelation is that the soul of the child is still here smiling and saying, thanks, Mom. I never wanted to etch something in there like that. I want you to listen. Only wanted love, only wanted love, only wanted love. The person you're forgiving on the planet, that may or may not still be alive, it's the best they could do in that yin and yang world. It's the best they had. And it wasn't good enough for you. And it etched something in your brain. Today you cover it with that compassion from the source and the light. So you can't get to it anymore. And suddenly you start to breathe easier and saying, it's like I just dropped a big suitcase of lead. That I'm free. It's almost like I can float now. So I don't have to take that anymore. I don't have to bring that around, and I don't have to drag it like an anchor, because you've covered it with compassion. This is as good as it gets, dear ones, for a human being to be balanced. You can't carry these things and call yourself a balanced human being, because you're out of balance. You're always dragging something around. And so this is how it's done. And it shouldn't surprise you on this Valentine's Day that I would yet again tell you about the incredible love that is on the other side of the veil for you. Not anger, not fear. God does not think like a human being. God, the creative source, if you can even say think, has no thoughts except, if you had to say what is a thinking God, it is one who projects, propels, and throws light and love and compassion as best can to you through a dark and dim place that you are slowly creating light within. And that is why we are so excited about the shift. Because there'll come a time when that dimness will go away. And the veil starts to become thinner. Mark my word, there'll be a day when you look back sometime in human history and you will see all the things that I have mentioned about the projection of the human onto God as a children's story. And you'll know the truth. God is love. And so it is.
As we are centered in the love now, there was a song in a recent event we had in Sedona that we all sang together at that meeting. If you just follow me, you will know how. I come from love. I live in love. I return to love. I am love. I come from love. I live in love. I return to love. Love. I am love. Higher. I come from love. I live in love. I return to love. I am love. I come from love. I live in love. I return to love. I am love.
So I love that we are here in Mystery Valley, a mystery because no one knows what happened to the Anasazi. And yet we have we're fascinated by mysteries as humans. We are completely mesmerized and fascinated by mysteries and what happened. And Kryon says that it is no mystery. We've had other civilizations come before us. And yet we are the first to go past the marker. All the calendars of the indigenous talked about this marker. It follows the precession of the equinox. It's a 26,000-year cycle, which relates to the wobble of the earth. And the prediction was that should we make it past 2012, we would see the highest consciousness on the planet that has ever happened. So guess what? We are past 2012. Now there's another mystery I want to talk about, and it's the mystery that relates to ghosts. Now, Kryon has told us that it's not a mystery at all. It's part of a system, because every time we come on the planet, we interface with the crystalline grid of the earth. It's an esoteric grid that was established by the Pleadians, and it's the ultimate recorder of human consciousness, energy, and action. So what's the attribute of a recorder? You can go back and play it again. You can play the tapes. And so when we interface with ghosts or those that have passed and we interact with them as though they were still here, we're experiencing the memory that's been recorded on that crystalline grid. And so where we sit today in this very special place in Mystery Valley, we're interfacing with the crystalline grid. We're also interfacing with the consciousness grid, the sentience, the personality of Mother Earth. So we can have sometimes areas on the planet where you have an amplification of energy that is so palpable. We are feeling both the crystalline grid and the consciousness grids of the earth. Now here's where it gets interesting. Since 2012, the way that the crystalline grid remembers human energy in action has been recalibrated. In certain parts, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, the crystalline grid is saturated with battles and war, drama, horror. And this is what's being recalibrated so that the grid is going to remember the emotions of compassion, of love, of oneness. And when you have a grid that becomes biased towards those attributes, this is going to be picked up by every child that is born onto the planet. Its Akash interfaces with that crystalline grid. It's being sent a signal of what the grid is vibrating at. So if we are vibrating at a higher rate, those coming into the planet vibrate at that higher rate. Doesn't it make sense that the younger generation will come and bring with them solutions we never even dreamed of or thought of? Doesn't it make sense that those children will come in and drop the lineage of hatred they have towards their perceived enemies? So this is why we really celebrate this time that we are in at the moment. And this is also why every single action that you take in your daily life, it's being recorded. It's being laid into and imbued into the crystalline grid. So what's going to happen next time when you transition and be born again onto the planet? It's kept there, it's held there. Nothing you've done where you've struggled has to be learnt again. It's already been learnt again. Now we're sitting here on top of a crystalline grid where Lee just mentioned we had healings last time. That energy is imbued under here. So the invitation is we can have more healings or not, it doesn't matter. You are your own captain of your own ship. And yet there is something here that we can all feel, and there's going to be people listening in to this channel later. Is it possible to send them the energy that we feel here? I think it is, and I think those that do listen, this is their opportunity, connecting in to where we are right now and sending them profound love and energy from ourselves as a collective group, and also from the consciousness of Gaia that is present here. Not everyone has access to this beauty of nature and majesty that we're sitting in. They may be in an area that doesn't have this, but they can feel it because we're sending it to them. So let's just close our eyes and send out the deep love that we feel from Gaia to our brothers and sisters all over the planet, that they can connect into this moment.
As you're sending this energy, anchor your consciousness into this space. Anchor your heart with the heart of this space. The ancient ones, they are a mystery. Are they a mystery for you now? Can you feel them now? Feel them through your heart. For maybe they never left. Maybe some of their consciousness is still here, speaking to you right now. Listen with your heart. Could it be that they are sitting with you, next to you, above you, all around you, in their hundreds or maybe thousands that have been here? So allied with the earth they have been, with the consciousness of Gaia. Maybe part of them is imbued in these rocks. In this stillness, you can hear them. What do they have to tell you? Listen with your heart. Listen with your heart. Breathe deeply. Breathe into the earth. Feel the very soft wind caressing you, loving you. It is all Mother Gaia. Stillness, stillness, stillness is a key to experience higher consciousness. Breathe slowly and deeply. Feel, feel, feel. Let your minds rest. Let your thoughts go for this moment, for it is sacred. It is sacred. It is sacred. Drop deeper into your heart. Drop deeper into the center of your being. into the crystals that are in your being. What memories come to you now? What lives you had before? What unity can you find now? Who are the ancients? Were you an ancient before? Do you know each other from before? Let those memories and feelings come to you. Let them speak to you. You are an ancient. You have been here for millennia. You have been in other planets for millennia. There is no beginning. There is no end. It's always in a circle, always in a circle, always in a circle. Feel your heart. Feel your heart. Breathe.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Before I speak at all, I ask permission from the ancestors of this valley for an uplifting message of truth that they will resound with. Dear ones, this is, for the listener, a place called Mystery Valley. We are giving this message, which is number 7, in the series called the Monument Valley Tour. Some of you may wonder what kind of place we're in, because it echoes and the walls resound with the sound of our voice. It's an alcove which has a ruin at the top. And the group sits at the bottom against the walls to listen to yet again another message that was given in this very place. Could it be that there are places on the planet that are more conducive to healing and understanding and epiphany than others? And the answer is yes. It's already been mentioned even this day as to why that might be. Because humans leave an imprint on the earth. And it's difficult to explain that. For we have to get into non-linear concepts which so many believe are esoteric, and yet they can be proven. When you walk into a battlefield of any kind, where so many have died, there are those who feel the energy and will know something happened there. Even if you don't prompt them to say, well, this is an ancient battlefield, even if you take them for a walk and don't tell them where they are, they'll feel it. Some human beings are more sensitive than others. Some will feel it greatly, some will feel it marginally, some won't feel anything. But the question is this, is what are they feeling? What is the process where a human being could relate to something that happened in a place so long ago? And it happens daily, dear ones, that those would go into a place they didn't expect where something has happened and feel energies, and later they find out that was a burial ground, or that was a battleground, or that was sacred land in the past. And so the object of the lesson today is to tell you that there are things that you don't know that are beyond that which you do. And what you do know and understand so profoundly is the linear existence and reality you live in. One step at a time, day by day, survival, making a living. And yet that is just a piece and a part of what real, actual reality is. It's so interesting to see what your scientists are discovering about multidimensional things. Now they are saying, well, there has to be at least 11, maybe as many as 22 dimensions as you walk around, and yet you're only aware of 4. And so this whole idea of multidimensionality is not somewhere else. It's here. It's in the mud that you walked in to get to this place. It's in every cell of your body. It's just that your awareness only puts you into 4 of them. Why do I tell you these things? Mystery. Mystery Valley. Let's talk about the greatest mystery of humanity. The one that all wonder about and none can prove. What really happens when you take your last breath? What is it? The mysteries abound and have through the ages and through the cultures. If you take a look at how this is treated, overwhelmingly you see one single thing that is a commonality. There is ceremony around the passing of a human being. And the ceremony is different for each culture and profound in many. In some, it is even guiding what they do next. Here, there's always been the idea of those that pass will go to a place and eventually will be accessible as the ancestors. Now, this is not uncommon with indigenous all over the planet. It's intuitive as far back as you go. There is the idea that death is not the end of a life. It may be the end of a 4-dimensional linear life, of a corporeal body that walks around, but it's not the end. And it really doesn't have much to do with religions or belief systems. It has to do with common sense and cultures. My partner took me to a place far away in the southern hemisphere, an island, 5 hours off the coast of Chile, called Rapa Nui. Some call it Easter Island. And they had their ancients. The Rapa Nui owned the land. They managed the land. And they are very aware of what happened in that place. And if you sit down and ask them, what about all of these odd statues, some weighing 13 tons? And there's over 800 of them that still exist. And the interesting thing is they all face around the middle. They're placed upon the beaches and they face the island. And up to a few years ago, there was the idea, well, they're indigenous. That means they celebrated and worshiped rocks. And then they realized that it was a lot more than that. That there was an elegance in that. And then when they talked to the Rapa Nui finally and asked them, what is this all about? The Rapa Nui said, these represent our ancestors so that they can continue watching over us and our civilization on this island as they have for thousands of years. Does that sound like anything on this land? And the answer is yes. Thousands of miles away, in a different hemisphere, you have the same almost identical idea that when you pass into another place and take your last breath, something grand happens. There's another kind of life. You'll find it even in the ancients that you can go and visit so profoundly. The Egyptians did it. They believed very strongly in the afterlife, not just for the pharaohs. You see in the Egyptian photos and the Egyptian history all that the pharaohs did so that they will go into the next life with the right accoutrements and the right boats and the right weapons and the valuables. But maybe they didn't tell you that even down to the lowest peasant, every Egyptian goes into the afterlife. This is intuitive, dear ones. And the question, of course, remains, what's the afterlife? What happens, truly, at that last breath? There was a famous illusionist named Houdini who was so interested in what he called the occult. And he wanted so much to find out how to contact the other side of the veil. He spent a lot of money and hours with those who could talk to the other side and realize that most of them were charlatans and no one really could do it. And so he made an agreement. When I pass, he said to his partner, I'm going to do my best to get through to you. He named the times or the times of years to try so that they would both be aware, him on the other side of the veil and his partner in 4D here. I'm going to contact you here and there, and I want you to listen because I'm going to really try. And nothing happened. So when you start to ask the question, not only what happens when you go, but can you then, in some fashion, talk to the ones who remain? And the answer is this: not in 4D, not to make an appointment, not to have a seance, although this will be controversial because many still do. It's not about a time on a clock or sitting around a table and then calling someone's name. It doesn't work like that. That is so linear. Oh, but it works. I have given you information in the past about what I call the journey of the soul. To Spirit, Creator, your soul is eternal. And whether you believe in that which reincarnates or not, it doesn't matter. Let's say you don't. Let's say you only believe you have one lifetime on the planet. This still works. That your soul is always there, always has been. Perhaps it's as old as spirit itself. Perhaps, as we have taught before, it somehow breaks off from the creative spirit and becomes human. But it has always been there. Inside you is a piece of that creator. That's the soul. And when you pass, it then returns to where it was. Now, over 80% of the earth believes this, in that they believe in an afterlife. And so almost all the planet intuitively celebrates the passing of a human being into another form of some kind. And this is the lesson of the day. We've spoken to you so many times about the difference between linear things and non-linear things. And yet none of you, not one human, truly can put yourself in a non-linear place. You can say, well, I've dreamed there, I've had visions there. But all you've done in that is to watch a movie. You never have truly understood how things can be in multiple places at once. One of the most common experiments in early physics was that of the examination of light itself. Was it a particle? Was it a wave? Then they discovered it could be either. Then they discovered that it reacts to being looked at. Then they realized light itself seemed to know things. Then they realized that it could be in two places at the same time. Then they stopped looking. Entanglement is so confusing to the linear mind, for it speaks of the idea of one thing being in multiple places at the same time. What appeared originally in the experiments as two things communicating over long distances instantly became the understanding of oneness. It's one thing in two places, one on a star far away and one on the earth, being one with both, and therefore there's no communication. They simply are one. That's entanglement. You can't grasp that with the human mind. It's impossible for you to put yourself in that place. But what I'm going to tell you is that the ancestors who are here right now and listening are smiling and they're laughing because I'm talking about them. They have always been in this multidimensional place because of a thing we've told you about the journey of the soul. When you pass from this life, dear ones, you become part of that which is all dimensions. You no longer are restricted to this planet, to this earth. You exist in all dimensions in every single way, and that means that that soul of yours can be in one place, two place, 18, 1 million places at the same time, for you're one with everything. You want to consider your loved one still in a linear form, with their body and their face and their mind and their consciousness and their thoughts and the way they looked. But all of that disappears after they leave this planet, and they become magnificent, just like you do when you take your last breath. And that means those ancestors in this valley are exceptionally real. It is not simply a tradition. Long before this modern civilization that you belong to existed, indigenous all over the earth understood this. And the whole idea and the reason was that they could continue understanding the wisdom that didn't leave the earth with the last breath, but continued. In this place, there is what we call the crystalline grid, which we have talked about before, and it amplifies this. The ancestors are those which passed and have come back. Now, what makes this extremely complex to most humanity is that you will say, well, if they've come back, how can they then be on the other side of the veil? After all, they're in this valley. And that's when we don't answer. Because you don't know what you don't know. For those who believe in reincarnation, I'll give you the biggest puzzle of all. I've told you that souls come back with an agreement to live with their loved ones, with their children and their grandchildren, and they remain with them to help them and guide them and love them. And those who believe in reincarnation will say, well, yeah, but what happens then? Because I think I know that they've also reincarnated. And the answer is, yes, they have. They've done both. They're in two places at the same time, just like light. Are you confused yet? That's the grandness of the multidimensional soul. That's who you are. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. I want you to prepare your children with something that perhaps is not taught to you in any place but this place. I want you to look in their eyes and say, there'll come a day when I pass. And it doesn't matter how I go. That's just in linearity. What is important is this, is that a piece and a part of my soul, which you now know, is going to come back and going to be with you until your last breath. And I want you to feel me. And I want you to talk to me. And I want you to remember me like I'm really with you and I'm really there. And if you start telling your children that, they will make this more real than it is today. For in linearity, it is so difficult for you to imagine this one who has passed coming back and sitting on your lap in another form, not available necessarily in seance, but available personally, intuitively to you every single day. For those of you who've lost loved ones, you already know of what I speak. It's not an imagination. It's not just that which is intuition or hopeful that that person actually might be with you still. They are. And they're with you in a way that you can't even imagine. In every single cell, they are with you. And over a long period of time, dear ones, this is how the bulk of ancestry is built. And that is why the ancients can turn to the ancestors as a group, knowing they've all returned in some form of wisdom to help them and guide them in places like this. Imagine how advanced thinking this is for the ones who dwelt in this valley. And if they could listen now, and some of them can, they still are winking and laughing that at this time in 2019, we are rediscovering something so basic and so advanced and so elegant that they all knew. The ancient ones were advanced in this. They knew how it worked and claimed it and lived by it. And you can too. There are those in the modern age who've said, Kryon, they write to me. They say, Kryon, I am in a country where my ancestry is everywhere. I have no real ancestors like the indigenous did with one bloodline. I've done my DNA test and I am everything. How can this work in a modern day? Let me start by this. Do you believe in what I have told you about the esotericness of a soul? That you live after you die? And if you do, then how many past lives do you believe, Lightworker, you've had? And in that, how many have you met? How many have you loved? How many children have you had? In those lifetimes, esoterically, not the lineage that you measure with DNA. I'm talking about the esotericness. I will then tell you that how old you think you are, how many lives you think you've had on this planet, old soul, that every single one of those children you've had and loved and the parents you've had and loved are in your DNA now in an esoteric way. There are your ancestors. Did you ever think of that? Did you ever think that each one of you might have your own entourage, your own ancestors, as you walk along the street? It gets complicated. And to some, it gets eye-rolling. Because it's not standard. It's not what you were taught. You've all lost people, dear ones, in the last years. Between the time my partner brought me to this valley and today, there have been at least 2 that we met here that are no longer here, of the Navajo. I want you to picture for a moment every single one you've loved and lost, including those 2, are right here. In a way you cannot imagine or believe or maybe talk to in a linear fashion, but that you can feel. And if they could have a message to you right now, they would say there's more than you think going on this planet. There's more than you think in the shift, in the evolvement of consciousness. And they will say this, things will go away sometimes that you thought were so precious, but it's time for them to become one with other things. Things do not stay the same, and the wind blows differently in different times. And then they would smile and they would say, we are always with you, we are always here, we are always available, just like you're going to be for your children and your grandchildren. Let them know now, so that this will be part of their belief system, just like it is in this place, on this land, in this culture, when they turn to their ancestors and ask them for guidance and wisdom, and they get it. What happens in your last breath? More magnificence is what happens. It's time for you to celebrate that. And there'll come a time, perhaps, where the courageous won't do funerals anymore. They'll do celebrations. And so it is.
So here we are at the end of another magical day, a precious day of all of us together. And before we proceed to the channel, that will be the short channel, the mini channel, I want to introduce to you an exercise, an activity, I don't really have a name for it, that will start this evening. You will take it with you to your homes, and it will end at our meeting at the end of the day on the tour, when we have our experience there and meeting. So Kryon has talked about this also a number of times. Not a lot, but in the last few years it's been mentioned in messages. And I believe that being here on this sacred land with a group of support like this, with the elements of nature, with your intent and your purpose of coming on this journey, it is can be a very, if not for most of you or for some of you, maybe an opportunity, a point in your life that you can make another change, another, maybe you can call it breakthrough, you can call it a step forward, a release, Now, this type of exercises have been done many times, but not in this space, in this type of group. We're here, so this all lends itself to the experience. Now, we all go through our life, and we all have situations and things that come up because we are humans, from the day we are born to the day we take our last breath. And there are things that are etched in our mind, in our psychology, in our being, that we cannot let go. And it's the way we think about ourselves for things we have done. It's things that we believe we have done wrong to others, or things we have said. All the things that can you imagine that you don't see yourself in a good light. We all have them from situations that we experience. So it is, you can call them a negative aspect, or a judgment that you have for yourself, for others, for God. The worst thing that you can think of yourself is simply lessening the magnificence of who you are. Because creation, God, Creator, they see us magnificent, and they do not want to see us carrying these attributes that we believe that we need to carry, or in some way, some of us even suffer through them in some subconscious way, thinking they cannot let them go. And we can let them go. And we are in a group that together we can let them go. Now, how much are you going to let them go? That's up to you. But we need an element, a physical element, a process to release them. And that, I think, was done not too long ago in one of the Kryon events. But I don't believe it was done in a space like this. So it is an invitation, and it is with your permission, if you are willing to participate. And there is no, of course, requirement to do anything other than your own will to take this opportunity, because this opportunity will never come back, at least in this space. So I have a box here of staples with papers, and a box of pens if someone doesn't have a pen. And the activity is that you take a piece of paper or two, and you will go this evening after dinner, and you will write down everything, or as much as you allow, that surface to you, that beliefs that holds you back. That holds you back, I mean, the worst thing you can imagine, that somewhere is in there and it's stopping you from doing things, and you want to let it go, but you can't. It doesn't have to be something that happened 20 years ago, but it can. Because if you sit and you write it down, it will start to come out. So it can be, you can write it down, you can make a list, whatever comes through for you. And then after you have done this, you will bring this paper with you to the tour tomorrow. And the keepers of the land, how I like to call them, the Navajos, are going to build they are building a campfire area for us in the tour where we're going to meet after the excursion. And there, the next step will be to take that paper and actually witness its dissolvement in the fire. You cannot think yourself through a situation like this and expect them to go away. This is suppression. And some of you know this, and you may have done a million processes to let things go, and there are still things that you can't let go. So there is nothing that spirit cannot handle that you have. Truly nothing. And all it wants you to release it and be and see you're magnificent and really let it go. So we have the opportunity to do this, and we have the support of our group, the energies that we create together, and Kryon, and the process. So that is my way of explaining this, which is in essence a simple process. And I would just suggest to simply allow it. Allow it when you write it down, and not to hold back. Not to hold back.